Hi there, I'm Jim.
And I'm Claire.
Let's talk teaching. Welcome to Let's Talk Teaching, a podcast from the Center for Teaching, Learning, and Technology here at Illinois State University. I'm Jim G. Joining me today, our director, Dr. Claire LaMonica. Hi, Claire.
Hi, Jim.
Happy autumn.
Happy autumn. It's feeling a little bit like happy winter, but technically we're a ways away from that. But,
yeah, we're recording
it's
this.
nippy out there.
We're recording this in early November, and we had about 2 or 3 weeks of autumn. So that was more like, did you have a happy autumn? I guess is what I was
It was
asking.
lovely while it lasted.
It lasted. I loved it. One of the trees outside of our new home here at Williams Hall. First of all, we have trees outside of our building now.
And we can see them.
So I guess it's a ginkgo tree, and it does this. But it just lost all its leaves in one day.
Just all at once. It was like, boom. Yeah.
Boom. It's like that scene from one of the movie versions of the Harry Potter books where the Whomping Willow just kind of gives up. One reason why I mentioned the season is that there are a couple of professional development events coming up soon. We have one on our campus that we're planning on, our Teaching and Learning Symposium. But you're also going to some conferences, both here at ISU, the Culturally Responsive Campus Community Conference is coming up. But also you're going to the Pod Network conference, I know. So I thought maybe we'd just talk briefly today about how do you prepare and how do you get the most out of a conference experience? And of course, you're talking to me, who's someone who doesn't like to travel.
Yeah, I know. I would say the first thing is that you should go.
Yes.
It's really hard to get anything out of it when you don't go. And, sometimes they publish the proceedings or whatever, but, there's no substitute for being in the room. And, joining the conversation or even just taking in the conversation while you're there.
One of my favorite moments was a few years ago when we were planning to go to the Pod Conference in Montreal. And I said, oh, gosh, I've never been overseas to a conference. And you gave me a look. And I believe you said, well, it's more like over lake.
Yeah, I know. We're not really going over any seas between Illinois and Montreal. But, that's a technicality.
I guess.
You need to get out more.
I do. I suppose I do. So going, commit to going is one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we have acquaintances who, not just me, but we have acquaintances who've waffled at times about whether they're going to actually end up going to it or not or whatever. Sure. But let's presume that you do, that you're planning to go and you're all booked and ready to go. Whether you're traveling far or it's on your own campus or whatever. What do you do to prepare before you go to an event like this?
I like to sort of set some goals for myself in terms of what I'm hoping to get out of the conference. And sometimes that can be as simple as building my network.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's more like there's a particular topic or a sort of a burning question, something that I've been wondering about that I think I might gain some insights at the conference. So I kind of try to be aware of what that question is.
Mm-hmm.
And following that, once I've sort of established that question, I like, and I don't always do this, but I think I get the most out of the conference when I take the time before the conference, even on the airplane on the way or, in my hotel room the night before the first meetings or whatever, to go through the conference program and identify sessions that will help me answer my question or learn the thing that I'm trying to learn. So, and I really like it when the conference has an app, because even though when I first started seeing them, I was like, ugh, I'm not so crazy. Who wants to do that? But I like it because generally it has the schedule and then it has my schedule.
Right.
And so you can just click on things in the schedule and it puts them into your schedule, my schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have that as a tool. I'm not frantically looking up between every session. I'm not spending the last 5 minutes of every session looking up to see where I'm going next and what room it's in and,
right.
What topic I'm going to be thinking about. So that also helps me tell whether I've established an agenda that's going to help me answer the question.
Right.
So I can sort of see a theme, running through and it might help me think about questions that I want to ask in particular sessions or if I don't hear something about this in this session, I might want to ask about it.
So that kind of answers my next question, which was going to be about how do you decide what to go to at a conference. I think one of the things I've often found, especially if I'm going to a national or an international conference, is that I get a little frustrated by the amount of choice I have.
There are so many choices. There really are. And if you don't go into it with a if you don't go into it, and I don't always, but I feel like I have a better experience if I go into it with a specific line of questioning or something, because that does help me kind of sort through what's out there.
Right.
And you know me, I have a tendency to get distracted by shiny objects. So it's very easy for me to go through the program and think, oh yeah, well, so this year I really want to learn more about meeting the needs of an increasingly diverse student body. And then I say, oh, look, here's a session on my discipline.
Yeah,
I think
right,
I'd like to go to that. Or, wow, here's one on meditation. I've never thought about that.
Right,
Maybe I should go. So anyway, it helps me focus.
Right. Well, so I guess you could go into a conference, and this is how I might approach like the teaching professor conference, which I am honestly booking my hotel room this week.
Oh, that's
so
good. Good
I'm
for
going to be
you.
on the
Yeah.
I'm going to be on the hook for $199 or whatever it is for the first
See
room
you
night.
there. Yeah.
So I'm going.
You can cancel the hotel room till the day before.
Well,
but
whatever. I
Yeah.
guess that's true.
I shouldn't
Shouldn't have
tell
told
you
me that. Shouldn't have told me that. Don't tell Jim that. No, I'm looking forward to it, and it's going to be in early June. I think it's in Atlanta this year, and I've been to Atlanta before. You know, I've done a lot of Atlanta in my life, so I'm okay with
know. I happen to know that someone who will remain nameless will definitely be organizing a dinner out at Pitty Pat's Porch in Atlanta.
that. I've never actually gotten to Aunt Pitty Pat's Porch yet in Atlanta, so I'll have to do that.
You definitely want to join that outing. Yeah.
Well, fiddle-dee-dee.
Yeah. CTLT or Illinois State University people will be invited to that.
And as a side note, we had you took a large contingent of people there last year.
We did. We had a huge number, like 19 or 20 or something. It was a big number. Yeah, there was a department that had used that as kind of a carrot for their faculty who were participating in a year-long professional growth opportunity.
Well, I'm looking forward to that particular conference because I have never been. I've been thinking about it for a long time, and I went to some of the other conferences associated with it over the years and presented at them even, but haven't been to that one. So much so, I'm looking forward to it that I'm even going down into the deep south in summer. Having said that, one approach I might take to that conference is actually my research question, if you will. The way you're kind of talking about it is, what new things do I need to know about?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you don't have a definite line of research, like I need to improve my teaching, I want to improve in this particular way. Maybe it's more of a fishing expedition. You can do that.
Absolutely, and particularly if you haven't been to a conference before, so you're not sure exactly what kinds of questions people are going to be addressing. I think it's a good idea, and this isn't always economically feasible, or financially feasible, but I think it's a good idea to go to a conference at least once before you try to propose a session for a conference.
Right.
Because that helps you understand what the expectations are, what are the it's a discourse community.
Right.
So, what are the conversations going on in this particular parlor to bring in Kenneth Burke in, which I don't know why we would, but anyway,
why not?
What are the conversations going on in this parlor, and how do you join them?
Let's talk about different types of conferences, because there are small conferences and then there are massive conferences, and they have different characters and they have different culture about them and whatnot. Do you change your approach differently depending on the size of the locality of the conference?
That's a really good question. Yeah, I think I probably do. I love a small conference.
Mm-hmm.
I love a conference with maybe 300 to 500 people. That you're sort of seeing the same people in different sessions, and you don't have dozens and dozens of options. There may be, maybe 5 or 6 options at a time, or whatever. Maybe not even that. I think I tend to do more networking. It's easier for me in the conference of that size. I tend to I'm overwhelmed. Even I'm overwhelmed by the number of people at a big conference with, more than 1,000 or golly, National Council of Teachers of English. There were lots of thousands of people back in the day. So the heyday of professional development conferences. But you're at the same time, you may not be able to identify a strand of sessions that address a specific question. So, but the conference is probably going to be more focused,
right,
on a specific topic. So,
a smaller conference,
a smaller conference.
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me. And all the conferences you've gone to over your career,
ever,
sure, ever.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Okay.
What was the best one and why?
Oh.
And I'll grant you, it may not be a teaching related conference necessarily.
Well, most of the conferences I've been to have primarily been teaching related. Although there's some more research oriented conferences that I've gone to. Wow. I used to be a regular attendant at the Conference of Writing Program Administrators. And I don't know that I could pick out a particular conference, but I loved those conferences. They were small. It was an established group. They had a very active listserv. And so I was at the conference, I was running into people that I had already been talking to online on the listserv or listening to, reading on the listserv. I was familiar with the research they were doing and the things they were publishing. So it felt like it felt like a small community. And in fact, that's what it was. It was a community of people doing the same kind of work, hard work, but and sometimes thankless work. Being a director of first-year composition pretty much just paints a target on your back. And,
as we've discussed, yes.
You need a duck. But those were really rich professional development experiences for me. I think just an extension of my own interest and being able to talk to a lot of people, but not too many people.
Right, yeah.
That were doing the same kind of work.
Right. That's interesting. Well, and it sounds like, there are a lot of organizations, the larger organizations now do have whatever they call them, constituency groups or these birds of a feather. Affinity groups.
Birds of a feather, SIGs, special interest groups.
Right.
Yeah.
So there may be a way to emulate that small conference experience in the large and go and seek those out.
That's actually a great point because I think that's very true. I'm currently I'm going to the POD conference next week. It's Professional Organizational Developers, which is a conference of people who do our work, supporting faculty. But I'm part of the Professional Development Committee for the POD. So the Professional Development Committee for people who do professional development. So how do we grow as educational developers? And we meet monthly via Zoom. So that is becoming for me that kind of small, it's an affinity group, it's a small group of people who I'm starting to recognize by name and by face. And we can talk about our shared passion for developing developers. Right.
Yeah. I'm doing actually something similar with a group, and it's not through POD, although I have a feeling it's going to end up being very POD related down the road. It's just a lot of us can't go there this year. A group of folks who do communication work for Centers for Teaching.
Yeah, and I would think that would be kind of a growing group. I think
it is a growing group.
I'm not sure that many centers had communication people until somewhat recently.
Well, I think
the last 10 years.
I think Dr. LaMonica, you were a trendsetter.
I was cutting edge
when you put that job ad out that I saw. But no, and seriously, and it grew out of a couple people asking, "Hey, are there anyone else? We're going to hire a communication person. Does anyone else do this?"
Yeah.
And it's been fascinating, kind of exploring topics with them and whatnot. And we do Zoom meetings occasionally and have a Google group and stuff. So yeah.
Sounds good.
It does sound good.
Yeah, lots of ways to grow professionally, and and everybody needs to grow professionally, even people who help other people grow professionally.
Right.
So, I think that's I'm really looking forward to the conference next week. We haven't talked much about the CRCC, the Culturally Responsive Campus Community Conference, which is the 2 days after I get back. So
Right.
I leave for Pod on Tuesday. I come back from Pod on Sunday, and then I have CRCC on Monday and Tuesday. So it's going to be a pretty rigorous 7 days.
Yeah.
But that conference is always a joy.
Sure. And it's one that's really found its place in the last few years. It's a relatively new conference on campus. Yeah.
And local.
And unfortunately, by the time this podcast hits air, the registration will probably be closed. I believe it's actually closing here in the next day, or actually tomorrow, I think it does, as we're recording this. But and it's one that we here at CTLT have supported behind the scenes mainly over the years with some communication work and whatnot. And so it's been fun watching it grow.
Yeah, and it is growing.
Yeah.
And, you could try walking in, but don't tell them I sent you.
Exactly. It's not like there will be any recorded evidence of that.
Right.
So, yes.
Yeah. Well, as we know from the symposium, there's things happen.
Sure.
People make plans to be in a certain place at a certain time, and then, things happen, and they can't be there. And sometimes the organizers are able to accommodate a walk-in or two,
But you know what? It's a local event here on campus, and I think if you happen to be in the Bones Student Center on November 18th or 19th, then they may be able to accommodate you.
You could. Nothing would be lost by asking.
Claire, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that's all the time we have for this episode of Let's Talk Teaching. Find out more about our podcast and send us your tips for how you enjoy and grow at conferences and professional development events that you go to. Go to our website, ctlt.illinoisstate.edu. You can find out how to contact us, find out more about our podcast, and more about the Center for Teaching, Learning, and Technology. For Dr. Claire LaMonica and for all my colleagues here at CTLT, until we talk again, happy teaching.